Today we're talking about 5 signs your practice time may be useless. Why in the world would we want to discuss something negative like what's wrong with our practicing? Well, obviously I want to help you economize your practice time and make the most of it. So let's go over a quick list of 5 things you need to look out for in your practice sessions, and if you're doing some of these, let's eliminate them so that we can tighten up those practice sessions. Number 1, you're practicing to a metronome. Now I have used a metronome and most of you have probably used a metronome. Metronomes have been recommended for a long time because they're tradition. But we have access to endless amounts of drum loops and backing tracks on the internet now, and we need to make use of those because a metronome only gives us a sense of timing, but all of these other things that we can use can give us so much more musical context. So if you're practicing over a metronome, yes, it gives you a sense of timing, but it doesn't really give you an end goal because it just keeps clicking for as long as you turn that thing on. If you're practicing to a song where it has a beat, at least you have a starting and an ending point, and you have a musical context. You might have bass, you might have other guitars, you might have keyboards, something that will give you more than just a click to go by. So my recommendation is to use backing tracks with as much musical context as you can, but if you only have access to a drum loop, for example, then you can practice over that. That's way more musical than just a click. I'll give a quick example of how I might practice a phrase over top of a drum loop. So as you could see, I worked on that more as a phrase and not just straight eighth notes. It sounded a little bit more like I was improvising the lick. And honestly, it's a lot more fun to play over a drum loop than it is a click. Backing tracks with harmonic context are even better because you get the timing, you get the key, all that sort of thing. All of that is going to make you a more musical player. Number 2, you're playing scales up and down. Never in human history has someone played a guitar solo where they just started out going up a scale and come down. Well, let's hope there's not a guitar solo like that anywhere. So why do we practice that way? If you're learning a new scale pattern and you need to memorize it, it's easier to memorize it in smaller chunks anyway. So what I might do is just grab the top 2 strings of this pattern and work on that. So whether I'm working on my technique and just picking through it, or I'm working on patterns within it, or working to improvise through it. All of that's going to be way more musical than just playing up and down a scale. Don't practice things that you would never apply in real music. Practice them exactly how you want to play them. You're practicing chords by changing back and forth with no real musical context. This has to be one of the biggest waste of time where people take, for instance, someone doesn't know the C chord and they don't know the G chord, or at least it's hard for them to get the fretting down, and they just go back and forth between these chords in order to try to get them down. That's an extremely slow way of learning chords. If you really want to speed up learning chords, put them into a chord progression, meaning a small piece of music. It could be a backing track that you look up, but it could be something that you just make up as well. I'll show you an example. Let me just play something over a drum loop. So to get chords down faster, you want to target changing chords on beat 1 of the next measure. And that will ensure that you are pushing yourself to make these changes, and it really will make your fingers meet the challenge quicker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, I was lifting my fingers off of the notes in advance because I was anticipating beat 1 coming around. And it trains your brain, which trains your fingers, to get to the next position on that beat 1. And I have found over the years that students who can really focus on this and train their brains to target beat 1 of that next chord change they're really able to learn their chords so much faster than people who don't do this. And obviously you're teaching yourself to be musical. You're teaching yourself to play the chords in the context of a song, not just changing back and forth to get the fretting down. If you do it in the context of the song, you'll get the fretting down anyways. Number 4, you're trying to use as many scale shapes as possible when soloing. This can absolutely kill melodic development, and when you really want to think about becoming melodic, most melodies are just a few notes, they're not a million. There's no need to use every scale shape that you know across the neck. With a melody, you're not trying to impress anyone with technique. You're trying to make a statement, a melodic statement. So I've talked about before limitation practices or exercises that you can do. Say we're in the key of A minor pentatonic, and I just choose these fret positions here on the 4th string and 3rd string. And I only can play those notes and try to develop a melody out of that. Well, if I only have these 4 fret positions, I'm going to be very creative to come up with something that sounds good. So maybe it would encourage me to bend, or slide, or hammer and pull, or put vibrato at the top of a bend. All kinds of things that limiting your note choices will cause you to do. And if you want more on this subject, I made a video about it and you can check that out right here. Number 5, you're practicing the same thing every day. If we're in the gym, is every day leg day? No. You've got to change things up because practice can many times not be fun to us unless we're keeping it fresh. If you're learning a song, learn the entire song. Why not? Don't just learn and be done with it. And here's why. If you learn an entire song, that's your goal right there. If you just learn a riff, you can't play that with another person really because you don't know the rest of the song. The riff might be helpful, but it's just a small part of the song. And let's be honest, 95% of the song is probably rhythm playing. And if you want to get good at solos and you're only learning solos, well, solos involve a huge amount of rhythm. You need to have rhythm in order to play a good solo. So learning how to be a good rhythm player by playing entire songs is truly helpful. But more than just that, like I said, it gives you an end goal. You start the song and you finish it, and it gives you a great sense of completion, and then you can move on to the next song. And the more you do that, the more you'll add to your repertoire, but you're giving yourself a real sense of satisfaction and encouragement that you need for these practice sessions. We all need these mini goals in our practicing, and if we're just practicing scales endlessly to a metronome, other than maybe BPMs, there's no real end goal in mind, and it's not very musical. But if we're learning complete songs, whether we're covering somebody else's music or we're learning a brand new song that we just wrote from start to finish, whatever the case may be, those goals are way more tangible because they're musical. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you will. A great free way you can support my channel is if you're already buying beautiful Music Man guitars or strings or picks or whatever the case may be, you can shop through my Sweetwater affiliate links down below in the description. It doesn't cost you anything extra at all, but it does help my channel in a small way, and I really appreciate it. You can also support the channel by getting your own cool Society of Guitar shirts or Guitar Fanatic shirts, which you can find down below. Join us over at patreon.com/PaulWarrenMusic, where I post all of my tabs and backing tracks for my YouTube videos, as well as tabs for Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you next time.